Hi everyone, it's Nicole for Spellbinders with the Felt Stitch and Create Floral Beehive Assembly video. The Floral Beehive is part of the Summer Felt Stitch and Create release, and as you can see, it pairs beautifully with other dies from this release. I'm sharing an example of a project I created here that incorporates the sunflower as well as some previously released floral dies. We're going to go ahead and put together the beehive as a standalone plush. And in this set, we get the beehive die. You want to die cut 2 of those pieces from your felt, as well as a piece from batting, or you can stuff it with polyester fiber fill or another fill of your choice. Then we have the door, leaves, lots and lots of greenery because this beehive is going to be bedecked in all of the wonderful florals. And we have lots of wonderful little flowers. Now, as always, I want to encourage you to use your florals in other projects as well. And the bee is another image that works very beautifully with other dies from this set. I incorporated the bee into a strawberry stitch that I did as well, and it's so cute. Okay, the first thing you want to do is you want to think of your beehive as separate components. Something I talk about in my Felt Stitch and Create videos is the fact that you need to consider the front and the back as their own individual unit before you stitch them together to make a plush. In this case, we are going to stitch the lines in the beehive as I showed you on that back piece. We're now doing the front or vice versa, whichever, and we're only stitching the horizontal lines. Now I did end up stitching the batting because that is what I'm using as my filler to this piece. It actually just gives it a little more stability. Did I really care that it lined up exactly with my stitching holes? No, I did not, because it does not matter in this case. It's just giving some padding and some depth and dimension to my finished beehive piece. We want to stitch those horizontal lines first, and then we're going to stitch anything onto the front of the beehive. Now, if you were just stitching the beehive on its own, you could put the front and back to back together and stitch them. But because we want to embellish the front panel of the beehive and not the back, you really want to do all of your horizontal stitching first. So I am stitching my lines by going up and down every other hole using 3 strands of embroidery floss, and then I come back the other direction to fill them in. If you like that kind of more sparse running stitch type of look, you could leave it like that, and that would be a fun design choice as well. There is really no right or wrong here. If you're stitching the beehive to another piece of fabric, like I did for the drum at the beginning of this video, you of course would just stitch the drum, or pardon me, the beehive to that fabric piece, or maybe you're making a pillow with it or whatever, and then you would stitch on any of the accessories that you like. I love that the florals and the door are separate. It gives you the ability to really customize the beehive the way you want it to look. Maybe you want to use different florals. Maybe you want to use some of the bigger florals from some of the other Felt Stitch and Create sets, or you want to add a bunch of bees to the beehive instead of the florals. This gives you the ability to really customize this shape the way you want to. So now we're just going to continue stitching these lines, and then we're going to start the very fun part, which is all of the wonderful embellishing. One of the things I love the best about this set is the florals and how sweet and kind of delicate and feminine it makes this particular image. I love it. I think it's a little bit different than a lot of beehives that you may have seen, and it would be adorable from paper as well if you're just wanting to stitch or die cut it, from paper and add to a card. I could see doing that very easily, and it would be very, very cute. When we are finished stitching all of these horizontal lines in our beehive, which give it all of this wonderful texture, it really, really does, we are going to tie it off on the back of the piece. Now, I didn't stitch the perimeter of this beehive yet because that is going to be where we stitch the front and the back together. So we don't need to stitch that quite yet. Once we have this, it is time to stitch on our door, our greenery, our flowers, and our bumblebee. All of these pieces actually have very limited stitching, so they go pretty quickly. It's just some color changes with our floss, and of course, all the little bits and pieces. I recommend taking the front of your beehive and let's stitch the door in place first. Starting with a coordinating color of embroidery floss and three strands of the floss, I am going to stitch the door to the front of the beehive. And again, we're doing that same every up and down every hole technique. It's a running stitch. And when we get back to where we start, we're simply going to reverse and go back in and out all of the holes until you have it completely stitched in place. I like starting with the door as I feel like it gives you a good base or starting point for adding the greenery. You're going to see as I finish stitching this down and then I grab the greenery, I'm going to lay out my stems and leaves in place, and I'm going to start there by the door and build out from there. So two of the curved kind of branches or stems, if you will branch out from either side kind of near the base. The straighter stem with leaves is going to come from the top of the doorway, and then the other two kind of, you can eyeball it basically from there where you want them to go. I recommend a nice sharp needle for this. I love a size 5 needle. And the reason you want that sharp needle is at this point, there are not holes to line up your florals with the beehive. That's what makes it super versatile. A sharp tip needle is going to pierce your felt very easily, allowing you to place these anywhere you want them to go. So have fun with it, customize it, and make it your own. So here we're going to start with some green embroidery floss. Again, I'm using 3 strands, and we are going to stitch these 2 stems in place coming out from either side of the door. Now, I've talked about this in other videos. Because this is a plush and the inside is going to be hidden, we're going to stitch the front and the back together. No one is going to see any of the messiness inside. Don't worry or get too caught up on making that perfect because, again, no one is going to see it. So mine does look kind of messy. That is okay with me. You'll see that I am going to go ahead and kind of just lay and press my felt in place. One of the great things about felt is it does tend to kind of stick in place, if you will. And so it will kind of stay where you want it to go. And that gives me a really great visual. I'm a visual person, so I wanted to see it laid out to say, yes, this is where I want my flowers to go, or no, I don't like that. The round part up at the top of the stems, this is really just where you're going to place your flower. What's great about the flowers is the flowers have button centers, so they look like buttons. I've die cut mine from felt buttons, but you could always replace those with small actual buttons if you wanted to. That is a design choice and decision that you can definitely make if you want to add even more texture to your finished felt shapes. I love adding sequins, seed beads, buttons, ribbons, trims, all kinds of things to my finished felt pieces to really kind of, take them over the top, I guess, if you will, and make them my own. But I do love the felt buttons as well, and they work perfect for this. There are not holes in the top of the greenery pieces, and that means that, again, your sharp tip needle is going to pierce through that perfectly. It just really kind of gives you a beautiful finished stem look, so you don't have a straight green edge kind of peeking out, if you will, from behind the floral stem. I have die cut these beautiful rose colored flowers. We're kind of going with some pinks and reds here, and the center of each of my flowers is red. So I am simply going to sew my little felt button and flower in place and then secure on the back by just knotting that. And then I'm going to move on to the next one. Again, if you're a needle worker, don't look at the back of this project because it is a little bit messy. And we're simply going to continue this. There are 3 of these pink flowers in total, and then we have 2 fun little red blooms. These are a different style of flower that come in the Floral Beehive kit, and those are going to go down here on the bottom. I love the combination of the different flowers. Definitely look at any of the flowers in any of your Felt Stitch and Create die sets and see how you can use them or customize them to work together for whatever you're trying to create. So we're going to lay each of these down now. And for these, because they don't have a button center, we're going to do like a little long stitch in each. But this time I'm using pink embroidery floss that matches the pink of the flowers. This is going to give a beautiful pink accent on each of these as well as that added dimension. So when you're working with this, think about the color of your floss almost as an accent or a shading color, if you will, if you're thinking about it in card making terms. You want to add any accent that you can to really elevate your finished look and design. So all of these straight lines are going to end up in the same hole. So you're coming in from the tip of each petal and ending in the same hole for each one of these. Now the final embellishment for the front of our beehive is going to be this bumblebee up here at the top, which is what I've left room for. This is kind of the basic assembly directions for this. I've also decided to place another flower down near the bottom. I believe that the little red bloom here actually cuts more than just the 2 when you die cut it. So I'm playing around with some of the additional florals, and there's also individual leaf dies, which are great because that allows you to really customize and change it up. And I liked that. I kind of liked the 3 and 3 for the flowers. So before I get too far into this and start working on the bumblebee, I am going to go ahead and add these 2 little green leaves down here at the bottom. Like how they just frame up the door as well. I think that this little bee theme somebody had mentioned to me at one point that the felt shapes would make a really cute baby mobile. I could see like a bee theme for a baby's room with several of these little beehives to make a baby mobile and would be really cute. You could also, hang little ribbon from these, and these could be little decorations to hang from hooks. I have mentioned in other videos that you can make these felt shapes and tuck them in to grapevine wreaths or other home decor pieces with some of your other felt shapes, and that would be adorable as well. Really customize it, think outside the box, and make it your own. They are very fun and very versatile shapes. Okay, once we have our final flower, the bee, which is one of my favorite dies from the collection, which is so funny. Actually, my 3 favorite dies from the summer Felt Stitch and Create release. I love first of all of the dies. The Floral Beehive, the Cheeky Apple, the Strawberry, and our Sunflower Bloom are all amazing. But the individual little components that I just think are absolutely darling, the Bumblebee from the Floral Beehive, our little flower with the little loopy center from the Cheeky Apple, and then the wonderful loopy center from the Sunflower. Just really cute, dimensional or versatile pieces that can be used in a lot of ways. And I love this little bee. have used it more than any of the other pieces in this collection. We are going to stitch the yellow pieces, yellow stripes, if you will, of the bumblebee to the bumblebee body while securing it to the body of the bee. So I'm just doing some quick little stitches here. There are not a ton of stitches required for this at all. It is very quick and easy. And then we have one more. And that is really all it takes to secure the bumblebee to, or the stripes, pardon, to the bumblebee, or the bumblebee to the project. Then we have the wings, and we are going to, again, match our embroidery floss to the wing color. So I'm going to use a white. And we are going to do very much like the florals. You'll notice that there's 3 little die cut openings in the rounded part of the wing and 1 in the skinny tip of the wing. That means we're going to come from the outer hole and end in that same hole for each of these. So 3 long stitches per wing. We're going to come up, stitch down, come up and stitch down. This gives so much texture. It also is just another way to secure the bumblebee to the project, but look at how cute this is when stitched to the beehive. Isn't that fun? Okay, we're going to tie this off, and it is time to stitch the front to the back. If you've watched any of the other Felt Stitch and Create videos, the assembly is now going to be the same. We're going to place the front of the beehive, or the back of the beehive front piece, we're going to place them back to back. That is what I should say. And then we are going to stitch them together, doing that running stitch so that the back looks as nice as the front. Starting in one spot in between the 2 layers, we are going to simply start stitching. Now, I know I started with a little bit short piece of thread here, so I will have to grab another one to complete this because there is quite a few little stitches all the way around, but that is what gives us the beautiful finished look. I often will flip my hand back and forth to make sure that I am hitting the stitching hole in the back of the piece as well as the front. Often you'll start to get a feel for it as you are working. Now, because I knew that my strand of floss was not going to be long enough to go all the way around, I only stitched a portion of this and then I went ahead and backtracked. This is something that I do every once in a while, and you definitely will get more comfortable with this the more of these felt shapes that you make. When I get back to where I started here, I will kind of just tie it off or run it underneath some of the other edges. I'm going to use up as much of this floss as possible. I'm a big fan of making the most of my floss. So I went a few extra stitches from where I started. And I am going to feed this through the seam in between the 2 layers of felt. And I just kind of ran it underneath the edge, brought my needle out and snipped it close. It's not going to come undone. And then I'm going to grab 3 extra strands of this floss, start in between the 2 layers because now I should have enough, and we are going to stitch the rest of the beehive. So again, I just started kind of where I had stopped at one of those sides. I just picked the right side here, came up from in between the 2 layers, and I'm going to do that running stitch up and down every other hole, or up and down every hole. And then when I get to where I started, I am going to reverse and come back, filling in those spaces. Then we're going to come out in between the 2 layers of felt and tie this off. If you wanted, you could sandwich a little bit of ribbon in the top before you do your stitching to make a little hanger, or you can thread up a needle with a bigger eye and run some thin cord through the top of this and make a little hanger or gift tag. These would also make amazing gift tags on presents. Something that the recipient could, take off of the present and then keep as an additional gift. I love gift presentation, and I think these would be incredible. If you get a little knot, just work it out with your needle. I can tell I must have had a pretty long piece of thread that was getting a little bit tangly, or you can let your thread dangle and untangle before you resume stitching. It is pretty easy to put together as long as you remember to do the front as one piece, the back as another, and then you bring them both together. Let's take a look at the finished floral beehive all stitched up. It is so pretty, so fun, and I hope you guys love it. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for the Floral Beehive Felt Stitch and Create Summer 2025 Assembly Video Instruction. The supplies used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Please be sure to visit my YouTube channel for more introductory Felt Stitch and Create videos and other fun projects you can create with felt stitching dies. Thanks for watching! If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, click that like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new floss tube, stitching, or quilting video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.